All right, we're about to dive into a really complex spiritual world, and this all comes from messages that are said to be from one of the most powerful and, honestly, controversial religious figures in 20th century Japan, Onisaburo Deguchi. We're talking about his supposed revelations, delivered from beyond the grave.
And that is where we begin. I mean, just imagine it. 40 years of complete silence, and then a voice suddenly emerges claiming to be the spiritual giant, ready to talk again. It's a pretty dramatic claim, right? And it's what kicks off this entire journey we're on.
So before we can even begin to unpack the message, we first have to understand the messenger. Who exactly was Onisaburo Deguchi, and why would his supposed return cause such a stir?
Well, Onisaburo Deguchi was a huge deal in pre-war Japan. As the co-founder of the Omoto religion, his influence went way beyond just his followers. He was shaping the spiritual and even the political conversations of the entire era.
And this really gets to the heart of why he was so controversial. According to this text, Deguchi wasn't just a spiritual leader. No, he was seen as a genuine threat. I mean, think about it. He had this immense spiritual power, he was openly against the war, and he had this grand plan to build a utopia right here on Earth. All of that made him a huge target, leading to these two absolutely brutal government crackdowns that pretty much tried to wipe his movement off the map.
So now, let's leave the earthly plane behind for a bit and step into the world Deguchi claims he's speaking from. And let me tell you, it is not your typical heaven or hell. It's way more political.
So, according to these revelations, the spirit world isn't just some peaceful paradise. Nope, it's got its own politics, its own power dynamics. You've got gods sorted into what are called mainstream and branch factions. And what determines which group you're in? Well, it's all based on how successful your religion or your movement was back on Earth. So, a god's status in the afterlife is directly tied to their earthly legacy, a legacy that can actually shift and change even long after they're gone. Wild, right?
And just to give you an idea of the scale of his spiritual claims, get this. The book says that in a past life, Deguchi was Hieda no Are. Now, that's the person who is credited with compiling the Kojiki, Japan's oldest historical record. This basically positions him not just as some modern leader, but as a being who is woven into the very fabric of Japanese culture itself.
And his claims don't just rewrite his own history, but the history of an entire people. The book goes even further back, offering this really unique take on ancient history. It argues that the true origin of the Japanese people isn't what you'd find in a typical archaeology textbook. Instead, it traces back to an advanced oceanic civilization from the legendary lost continent of Mu.
Okay, so if the spirit world is this complicated, who are the beings that actually interact with us down here? Let's meet the different kinds of spiritual guides who are said to be influencing humanity.
The text basically breaks them down into two main teams. On one side, you have your Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They're all about the theory of the mind, teaching wisdom, philosophy, the deep stuff. But then, on the other side, you've got these figures from Japanese folklore, like the Sennin, these immortal mountain hermits, and the Tengu, those kind of bird-like goblins. They are all about the theory of action. They're the ones who get hands-on and intervene directly in physical, practical skills. And the role of these Sennin is just incredibly broad. You can almost think of them as spiritual coaches for high performers. The book claims they guide everyone from top athletes and singers to astrologers and, get this, even stock market traders. They're basically lending their otherworldly expertise to anyone who's trying to excel at a particular craft.
Then you have the Tenyo, or the celestial maidens from Buddhist lore, and they come in three very different flavors. First, there's the savior, who's all about compassion. Then you've got the idealist, who's perfectly happy in her own perfect world and not too interested in us. And finally, there's the trickster, a powerful magical being who loves a bit of mischief and apparently competes in a celestial dance-off every single month.
So, now that we kind of know the players, let's take a look at the rules of the game. Because this spiritual universe, it runs on these huge cosmic laws that influence everything, from our personal lives all the way up to the grand sweep of history.
According to the book, history isn't just a random series of events. It unfolds in these big cycles, or planetary ages. Each age is dominated by the energy of a specific planet. So, an age of Mars brings war, while an age of Venus brings art and beauty. The idea is that humanity is constantly moving through these cosmic tides, which might help explain the rise and fall of entire civilizations.
Now, a really central idea in all of this is something called Jinzuriki, which basically means supernatural power. It's defined as the ability to communicate directly with these high-level spirits. But the text immediately gives a very stern warning. This power is a double-edged sword.
And this is the really crucial part. So on the one hand, yeah, this power can connect you to some incredible divine wisdom. But, and this is a big but, it also throws the door wide open for deception. The real danger here is that a person's own ego, their desire for power, can actually attract these lower-level malicious spirits. And these entities are tricky. They can pretend to be benevolent gods, feed you all sorts of false prophecies and visions, and basically hijack your spiritual connection. And that leads you down a path straight to ruin and what's described as a hellish afterlife. So what's the point of all this? Where is it all leading? The final part of Deguchi's message really brings everything together, revealing what's described as a grand plan for humanity and for the world itself. Deguchi's message lays out a really clear mission for religion. It's not just about worship. It's about providing answers, giving people a whole new lens to see the world through, fostering genuine happiness, and, echoing his own life's goal, actively working to build a better world, a utopia, right here on Earth.
It all leads up to this one single, powerful concept, otatanaoshi. This translates to the Great Reconstruction. And this is presented as the ultimate purpose of Deguchi's message, nothing less than a complete spiritual renewal of the entire world.
And that, right there, leaves us with the big final question at the heart of all these revelations. If the ultimate goal is a great reconstruction of the world, what does that actually mean for us, for how we live our lives, for our societies, and for the future that, we're all building together?